I've worked security on and off for several years to supplement my income, so I've heard quite a few creepy stories from coworkers. Probably the most legitimately scary story I've ever heard was from a guard that was working in a closed-down arena. The building is more than 100 years old, but hasn't been used since the early 2000s. The city is keeping up with basic maintenance as it waits for a buyer. There's usually one guard assigned to the building. It's a 6,000-seat arena with a huge basement and 2 additional floors that have lots of old office spaces, dressing rooms, and a separate smaller community theater type stage that's upstairs. The usual guard is doing his rounds through the building. The building itself is very interesting, as it's largely unchanged since the heydays of the 1970s and 80s. The upper floors are largely dark and are pretty creepy. Anyway, the guard is doing his normal rounds but feels unnaturally creeped out. It's his normal post, but something feels different today. He's feeling jumpy but shakes it off and continues. He's a very diligent guy, so he walks every floor of the building. He's in the very top of the catwalk system above the main arena where the old spotlighting equipment was. It's a narrow wooden catwalk system, and suddenly he hears a loud creak behind him, like someone is walking around. He spins around and sees a guy standing there. The guy is frozen mid-stride like he's tiptoeing up behind him. The guy has an unsettling, mischievous-looking smile on his face, like he's been caught with his hand in a cookie jar. The man was holding a big steel pipe in his hand instead of a cookie, though. The guard draws his gun and the guy takes off running in the opposite direction and disappears into the dark labyrinth of the building. The guard calls the police immediately, and they come sweep the building with a canine, but they don't find him. They do find that he's been playing in the dust that's on top of the old concession counters. He had written a bunch of bizarre helter-skelter type unsettling rhymes, and drew a bunch of stick figures hanging from nooses. The speculation is that it was some crazy homeless guy that had been hiding in the building for a few days and made a game of following the guards without them knowing. I saw the writing still on the counters the last time I was there. I am not and have never been a security guard, but I remember one late night I was closing the store with my boss. We locked the front door as we closed and cleaned. While nearing the end of our shift, we heard scratching at our store's front door. It's a glass door with an automatic slider, but as I said, it was locked. We originally shrugged it off as an animal or whatever. That was until we finished cleaning. My manager heard scratching at the back door, but it can't be opened from the outside. Someone or something was trying to get in. The scratching was violent and near the upper part of the door. He was back there finishing up an inventory check as it all happened. He shouted at whoever it was to leave or that the police would be called. The scratching stopped right after that, and he made sure the door was locked from the inside too, which was procedure. But curiosity got the better of him, and he opened the door to look around. He saw nothing but darkness. What he did find was claw marks where the scratching was. Animals are not uncommon in the area, but usually just stray dogs and cats. Nothing big. But these claw marks were not normal in the slightest. He came up front where I was putting cleaning supplies away. I was at our main checkout area, which was next to the front door. I asked what happened, and he told me. Soon after, we heard loud scratching from the front door again. We looked over, and had to have both been pale, as we saw a human-like hand with long, sharp nails at the door. The only other visible part of the thing was its huge eyes, reflecting the light from inside. The manager and I are young, strong guys, but both of us knew not to go near that door. We called the police, and we didn't leave until they were inside the building. The officer escorted us out to our cars and we got in. As we were pulling out of the parking lot in our line of cars, I looked back and I saw a human-like head peeking at us from around the corner of the building. Again, its big reflective eyes stared at me. We all pulled out and I stopped at a nearby gas station. They did the same, and I could only assume they saw what I did too. The cop confirmed what we had saw, and he had some other officers drive by to look around. Despite what we saw, to this day we still don't know what it was. The officer was pretty sure it was a prank, but the day after he still went around the area and asked anyone with a camera facing our store for possible footage. They captured nothing. About 15 years ago, I was a guard at a pastry manufacturing plant. At night, it was a cold and creepy place, filled with weird machinery, and is very much in a really bad part of town. There was a catwalk above some of the machines that led to offices, with a long metal staircase. Around the beginning of this staircase was a metal cage with a gate I had the key to. Nobody else was up there. On the catwalk, there were hooks with lab coats. 3 coats with 5 hooks. All were hung on the side where the catwalk met the stairs, so the far 2 hooks were empty. After I made my round this night, I came back and noticed that 1 coat had moved from the middle hook to the far hook. Still, I unlocked the gate, closed and locked it behind me to check the offices. This was at about 8 p.m., and the last of the employees were long gone, but I had figured maybe one returned. The catwalk was empty, and so were the offices. There was no other way down, so now I was a little bit freaked out, but I figured it was just my mind and I didn't see the coats correctly the first time. I went back down, locked the gate, and headed to the lounge area. I did my round there and made it back to the staircase. The coats were moved again. This time, each hanging on an alternate hook. I started to get frustrated, thinking someone was messing with me. I went back up to the catwalk. It was empty. Checked the offices. They were empty. I locked the gate and checked the back and front doors. They were all shut and locked as they should be. The alarm was still armed as well, so it couldn't have been someone who came back. At this point, the uneasiness took over, and I went back to the lounge and locked myself in there. F whatever was going on. I checked the monitors we had and saw nothing. After about an hour, I built up the courage to go back out there. I did one more round, and the coats had changed spots again. I actually stopped doing rounds after this, and figured if they want to fire me, I don't care. I asked for a new assignment the next day, and never went back again. I asked other guards who had that assignment afterwards, and they told me weird things did indeed happen there, and they were unable to explain them.